Hey guys, it's Tim and this is Pro Wrestling Unlimited. Pro Wrestling Unlimited is a pro wrestling news YouTube channel and website where we strive to bring you the latest and up-to-date pro wrestling news. With multiple live podcasts every week and breaking news, we try to do our best to keep you in the know of everything in the pro wrestling world.
Since 2015, this channel has grown into more than just a wrestling news hub, and that hasn't been without the support from you guys. In our first 3 years, we have grown over 100,000 subscribers, and that number continues to grow every day. We've taken the next step in bringing you the content that you want to see.
With PWUnlimited.net, we can now bring you even more news than before, like some of the smaller stories in pro wrestling that are no doubt interesting, but not big enough to talk about in a video. We also bring you results from multiple shows every single week, and so much more.
With all of that, we still want to grow PW Unlimited into something even bigger, and that is where we need your help.
We are officially launching the PW Unlimited Patreon with some cool perks just for you guys. Patreon is a platform that allows you to support content creators just like us, and in return, we offer you some exclusive content, merchandise, and our undying love and affection.
If you still cannot support us on Patreon, we understand and ask you to continue to follow us on YouTube and the website, and share our content in hopes that someone new sees it and follows PWU. Now, here is what you can get if you support us on Patreon.
The PW Unlimited Patreon is broken up into 4 separate tiers, starting with the Bronze tier. With the Bronze tier, for just $1, you have the opportunity to ask us questions that will be answered on the PW Unlimited Wednesday show. Also, your name will be featured on screen during all PW Unlimited podcasts as a thank you for supporting us.
With the Silver tier, you will get our Patreon exclusive NXT, NXT UK, and 205 live podcasts, as well as exclusive Q&A streams with different members of the PW Unlimited team throughout the month, as well as some faces throughout the wrestling community here on YouTube, plus everything else you heard above.
With the Gold tier, you will get the exclusive PW Unlimited Patreon podcast, where we talk about anything and everything, not just wrestling. Plus, Patreon exclusive retro reviews voted on by you guys. You will also get early access to Nick's hot takes, PW List This, Life Before Wrestling, and more. Plus everything in the Bronze and Silver tiers.
Finally, the Platinum tier. The Platinum tier is for the top supporters, and to show our thanks, you will receive Patreon exclusive PW Unlimited merch and more every other month. Plus, everything included in the Bronze, Silver, and Gold tiers.
We've heard the crowds for more content, and that's exactly what we're aiming to do with the support of you guys.
With everything we mentioned here already, as more and more we support PWU on Patreon, the more content we can add over time.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who has supported us over the last 3.5 years and who will support us into the future of Pro Wrestling Unlimited in hopes of growing this into something we could only imagine.
Like I said before, PWU started as a wrestling news hub, but since then we've grown to podcasts, interviews, and so much more. And I'm so excited to start this next step in the channel with you guys.
Hey guys, it's Timmy, and this is Pro Wrestling Unlimited, as we're here with the PW Unlimited Wednesday show, episode 59, and as Sean Cook asks, yes, Nick, what's going on?
What is going on, lads, gents, and everyone else? Thank you guys for tuning into this edition of the Wednesday show. What's today? January 16th, 2019. I'm still writing. Whenever I have to do stuff at work, I still write 2018, and my manager gets extremely pissed at me. So, to get the elephant out of the room, Noah Nolan Perfect hits it on the head and just says, they're selling out. We didn't sell out. No. It was something that we had to do. It's one of those things where the Patreon is just so we can make sure that we can continue to put out content and not run into any issues, long story short. Feel free to sign up. If not, you guys watching, tuning in every single week means the world to us, and it helps us a lot more than we could ever put into words. What I want to say is we've got a lot of shit to talk about this week. A lot of fun stuff. Yeah. A lot of stuff that we can debate. Jimmy Garciano, I believe that's the name, says, Nick, I missed you. I missed you too, buddy. Oh my god, I'm going to mess up this name. Mesmer Heart MTG, which I'm assuming is Magic the Gathering Enterprises, is glad to have you here, Nick. Glad to be here. Glad to have you here watching
Whoa.
the show.
MTG could also stand for management.
That's true. I assume Magic the Gathering because I'm still a nerd. Nicholas Altmore says, it's the next day on the other side of the country. That's very, very true. I will be on the other side of the country Saturday. I'll be in Florida.
Interesting.
Dash, I'm sorry. No, I'm not going to the Rumble. I thought I was, but I'm not. I'm sorry.
I highly, highly considered it, but I wouldn't be back in time. I'd have to be back before Monday morning, take the kids to school, and I wouldn't be back in time.
So to clear up something a little bit, Nicholas Altmore says, what will the Patreon, or what from the Patreon will make it onto YouTube? Why don't you, Tim, kind of tell them what's going to be coming, what's going to be the Patreon exclusive, what will be up early on Patreon, what kind of, what's going to be the differentiation there for them?
Yeah, so as you can see, if you go to patreon.com/PWUnlimited, we do have 4 tiers there, as we did say in that video that opened up the show. Now, what we're going to have with the bronze tier, you guys can ask questions there for this show every week, and we will make sure those questions get answered. They will not get overlooked. They will get answered. That's only $1. You'll also have your name scrolling across the screen for every podcast we do, whether it's this podcast, a review, an interview, anything we do. Mm-hmm. Anybody that supports us, even at the $1 tier on Patreon, you'll get like a producer credit.
Yep. And you can even throw in a little nickname. So if you want to be like Nick, Nick, the hottest guy on earth that all the ladies love and all the men wish they could be, Armstrong. That was my nickname in high school. For those of you that didn't know that, shut up. They don't know that. They don't know that.
So then with the next tier, the silver tier, we have the almost completely exclusive NXT, NXT UK, and 205 Live podcast review. What the plan is that all 3 will be in the same podcast. But if it is the week of either an NXT takeover or an NXT UK takeover, then we will take the review from that week's NXT or NXT UK and upload it for you guys on YouTube for free. So that's why it's a almost exclusive, because at least once every couple months you'll get a chunk of that podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Then with the gold tier, Nick and I are going to do a new podcast that we've been talking about for a while now.
I think we've talked about wanting to do this podcast since, when did I graduate, or technically graduate? Like June. So probably since about July, we've been talking about doing a special little podcast every week.
Yeah, it's a podcast that we don't talk about wrestling. We just talk about anything and everything else. That's why I called it in the video. The logo says the Everything Else Podcast. I don't know if that's going to stay the name. Probably not.
Probably not. That's kind of stupid. I'm not going to lie.
Also, we're going to do a retro show reviews and watch-alongs that you guys actually on Patreon get to vote for. So we'll put up a poll. We'll say, hey, these 3 shows are under consideration because hey, Royal Rumble's coming up. So Royal Rumble 04, Royal Rumble 92, Royal Rumble 99. Which one do you want us to watch and review or do a watch along with? So that's going to be only on Patreon. That's a Patreon exclusive, all the retro stuff. Then, also in the gold tier, you will get early access to Nick's Hot Takes.
Yep.
Our new list videos. Sometimes they'll only be, they'll all eventually all come out as videos. But if
my intention is to our lovely Nicholas Bronson, Brosnan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to pronounce it, but what he's going to be doing is he's going to be writing up some really cool list articles, and you are going to hear my lovely voice behind it, counting down from 10 to 1, or, whatever he starts it at, and making it a video on the channel.
And then also Nicholas will be doing biographies on certain pro wrestlers, not just WWE, but any before, and talk about like their life before they were in wrestling, basically, and how and where they started in wrestling.
Oh yeah, we've to peek a little bit behind the curtain, we've talked to a couple independent promotions, one out by me, one based out in Rhode Island, and a few other ones where we can talk to some pro wrestlers and we can get some really, really cool stuff.
And then finally with the platinum tier, of course, with Patreon, every tier you go up, you get everything from the previous tiers. But with the platinum tier, every other month, we're going to ship you guys out an exclusive PWU item, whether that's a t-shirt, whether that is a handbag or like a tote bag kind of thing, whether it's a hat. We don't know exactly. I know the first month is going to be a t-shirt.
Yeah. Really cool looking t-shirt too.
But going forward, we're trying to maybe not do only t-shirts to change things up. So we'll see what options we do have. But you will get every other month if you are a pledge or a supporter at the platinum tier. You will get exclusive PW Unlimited merch.
Yeah, and it's, I'm really excited to start doing a lot more stuff, to have you guys get that exclusive podcast, to have you guys get a little bit of the stuff early. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I hope you guys do consider signing up. If you have an extra dollar to throw around, throw it at your computer screen. And then once you pick it up off your desk because you realize money can't travel through screens, maybe use your debit card or your mom's credit card. Instead of buying V-Bucks, sign up for our Patreon and you can get some cool stuff.
So with that, we're going to talk a number of topics, but I want to start it off with...
No.
Whoa.
I have something to start off with because I saw a handful of people talking in the chat about, this guy, when is this guy coming to the main roster? When is this guy getting called up? And I've been thinking a lot. What do you think about the crop of people that they decided to call up? EC3, Lacey Evans, Heavy Machinery, quote unquote Lars Sullivan. We don't really know what's the plan right now. Nikki Cross. What do you think?
I think, EC3 is a good call up if they use him properly. He could be really good. Lars Sullivan could have been a really good heel because there's too many guys I feel like on the main roster right now that the crowd likes. So you need a heel that can kind of like weigh that out. So he could have been that really big heel that would have worked really well. And Heavy Machinery, I thought they were going to be something good, but what I saw Monday and Tuesday does not give me any kind of confidence.
Here's the thing. What they did Monday, Tuesday is exactly what they do in NXT. They just kind of it's what is that one, Otis, the big boy?
Yeah, but
the big short boy?
Yeah, but here's the thing with that. He wasn't like that when he first started in NXT. He wasn't just a, comedy guy. When they first introduced Heavy Machinery, they introduced him as a legit tag team that can dominate on some other people. So I assumed that at first you bring him up to the main roster with the thought of, well, only X amount of people that watch Raw and SmackDown watch NXT. So let's introduce these guys as the Heavy Machinery, heavy hitting, hard hitting tag team that they can be, and then we could start implementing some more of the comedy things that they're good at.
Well, I'll tell you exactly when they became comedy, and that was their mini feud with the Street Profits.
True.
It was that. But here's my question: is Heavy Machinery the first call-up that never wrestled on a takeover? On the main card of a takeover?
I didn't think about that. I don't know.
They've never been on a takeover. I just realized that.
Now I'm trying to think of all the different call-ups. I think Dana Brooke wrestled Asuka on takeovers.
Mm-hmm. All the horsewomen wrestled on takeovers.
Apollo Crews debuted at a takeover.
Exactly. So
you might be right there.
I do understand that the comedy factor for Heavy Machinery made them a little myth, but I do think if anyone's gonna do that really cheesy, shticky comedy style, it's gonna be Otis and Tucker. It's gonna be Heavy Machinery.
Right.
The one that I have the most fear for is EC3 with his little backstage skit that happened. This little 2-second quip with him and Joe at SmackDown, where he was doing the thing in the mirror, and for 2 seconds, what was your first thought when you saw him? When you saw him and then it panned over to Joe, what did you think?
That fits the character, but why are they doing only that? Why is he not?
I immediately thought TNA.
Why do you think that?
Because both of them were in TNA.
Oh, I can see where you're coming from then.
Nicholas Bronson says Ruby Riott, Sarah Logan, Liv Morgan, or Ruby Riott, and Sarah and Liv have all wrestled on takeovers.
Have they?
Oh, Lacey Evans.
Yeah, Lacey Evans hasn't. But I don't think Liv or Sarah have, actually. Ruby, I think, has, but not Liv or Sarah.
You might be right.
I'm going to Google this while you speak.
You might be right. Look, regardless, I think everything that they've got going with these call-ups right now is a very iffy thing. I really would have liked if you kept EC3 down there a little bit longer, because I feel like EC3 didn't really do anything. He never really had an impact. He had a great thing with Bobby Fish going for a little bit, but it just felt like EC3 in NXT was like, what do we do with you? All right, cool. We thought of something. Just leave. And it felt kind of wrong. I didn't care for it too much personally. And I think that's what's bothering me. Some
Right.
people are saying Alexa Bliss. She's definitely wrestled at takeovers.
I believe. I think so.
Our fact check guy. Where is he? Steve Van Bloom. Steve Van Bloom has always been our fact check guy. And
Right.
He's not even here. I'm hurt. Ruby was on Takeover Orlando. Thank you
Ruby
very much.
was NXT Takeover Chicago. She was in a triple threat NXT Women's Tag Team or NXT Women's Title match against Asuka and Nikki Cross,
Asuka.
or as William Regal likes to call her, Asuka.
Asuka.
It was a fatal four-way match. Ember Moon was in the match as well.
Got it. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the crop of NXT call-ups were like, they got called up to please fans, not because WWE thought these guys are ready. They were like, who could we call up that would be fine, but to make the fans happy?
Correct.
Just I got the hiccups. Sergio Gomez, we'll talk about that in a little bit. EC3 was moved to the main roster for the same reason Elias was moved from the main roster. Elias was moved to the main roster. Why?
What was that reason?
I don't know. What do you mean, Slime Hub?
Well, probably because he's got the body that Vince likes.
Think so?
Yeah, I think that's what he's insinuating. I don't know if that's the real reason, but I think that's what they're insinuating.
And I do understand that EC3 didn't need to be in NXT long because he was already there, but you got to realize that he was there when it was a very, very, very weird time for NXT.
It was when it was the NXT reality show, not the NXT brand.
Foolish. Who would you like if you can take one call-up out and replace it with another NXT guy? Who'd you take out, or girl? Who would you take out? Who'd you call up?
I would take out Lacey Evans.
Okay.
And I'm a little torn on this one because I would almost say Shayna Baszler, but I wouldn't know how to use her yet. Like everyone's going to say pair with Ronda, but I don't think you should.
No, she needs to kind of be her own thing.
Yeah,
that needs to come naturally.
And looking at all the other women in NXT, I don't know. Bianca Belair's probably not ready yet. Like, she's good, but I don't think she's ready for the main roster yet.
I think she's ready.
You do?
Out of all of their women, I believe that she's ready. I feel like with Bianca Belair, you've got someone that can at least wrestle a match. I feel like Charlotte could carry her to a really good match. She can mess around with Ronda. She reminds me a lot of Alicia Fox in their wrestling styles of like, it doesn't really look like it works, but it ends up working in the end.
Yeah, but Alicia Fox just got ruined by her character.
So that's a Slam Hub Wrestling's argument. In all caps, the reason is because EC3 and main roster are perfect fit for main roster.
Huh?
English class wasn't... You fell asleep during English, didn't you, buddy? You didn't exactly pass that.
Well, English isn't his first language.
Regardless, I would have taken out... Heavy Machinery, and I would have put the Street Profits up there.
Really?
The reason I would have put the Street Profits is because the Street Profits are comical and really talented guys. So
True.
I feel like Heavy Machinery is just the comical guys that could be used for the comic relief, but Street Profits can do a lot of good stuff in the ring. They've had some pretty solid matches. I believe they're still the Evolved Tag Champs, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So they've got some cool stuff going on.
Right.
I feel like if they were to get called up today, I think they'd be fine. I think what they're doing with what are they called? The Forgotten Sons?
The Forgotten Sons basically took the TM61 slot in that feud.
Forgotten Sons, more like forgotten guys that no one really cared about.
You want to hear something that they were going to do with Forgotten Sons?
No, I don't.
So,
all right,
I'm going to say it anyways. So they had a plan, which it actually happened, and then they nixed it and changed it to where they're the Forgotten Sons, and the announcers forget to do commentary during their matches. They uploaded an episode of NXT. It was Jackson Riker, I forget against who, no commentary. And then like the next day they re-uploaded it with commentary in the match.
I like that. I think that's cool.
I don't know.
I don't get what the point would be,
Because
but
they're forgotten. And their whole thing is that they're overlooked and people forget about them and their history, where they came from being all military and stuff.
God, how what edgy teenagers they are. Oh no one notices me. Oh, we're so mysterious. Oh, we listen to My Chemical Romance before every match. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire.
Slam Hub Wrestling, Nick Miller didn't retire per se.
Nah,
I believe he basically just asked for his release to go back home to Australia.
that's good. I like Nick Miller a lot. I love TM61. I thought they were great.
Speaking of people asking for their release.
Oh yeah, what a transition.
We learned of 4 possible superstars looking to leave WWE, getting their release.
That's kind of a tag team and then a couple.
So,
Say 4, making it sound like more.
So early this morning, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com sent out a GIF on Twitter of the Revival, and all it said was "Top guys out," no other context. So people online were like, "What does this mean? Are they getting released? Are they leaving? What's going on?" And then Sean releases some information on Fightful.com stating that he doesn't know for sure if they've asked for their release, but they want to leave WWE. They're unhappy. And apparently, let me pull up the actual quote here. Many in WWE are fearful that the Revival could be looking to leave the company. One source actually says that many do believe that if they do leave, they can go to AEW. And this is all possibly stemming from, I guess, something that could have happened at Raw. I don't know what. There's no more really known on that. Sean was kind of talked about this on his Listen You Boy podcast today, but like I said, didn't really have much information. One source did tell Sean that they have reason to be fearful that the Revival are done and finished with the company. Now you got to remember though, Sean never said that they quote unquote asked for their release. They may want to leave, but they haven't asked for their release yet. They could have, but we don't know that 100%. An interesting thing here is that Dash Wilder, real name Daniel Wheeler, does own the actual trademark for hashtag FTR. He filed it on January 1st.
Really?
Yes. That's why they had it on their trunks a couple weeks back. Because they can do that, I guess, because he owns the trademark. So if they were to leave WWE, now another interesting thing is I looked through the trademarks WWE has on the U.S. Patent and Trademark website. I could have overlooked it, but I did not see one for straight up The Revival.
Mm-hmm.
So, if they leave WWE and I didn't miss anything, they can go somewhere else as The Revival maybe. Now, like I said, I could have missed it because WWE had over 2,000 trademarks on the website. But even if they can't be The Revival, then they can go to say AEW just as FTR. Now,
why would they go as FTR though?
I don't know, just a name. But I also think now WWE owns the trademark to the name Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder. I don't know about Dash, but I know that Scott Dawson used the name Scott Dawson before coming to WWE. So I don't know. That'd be a little slippery of a slope there because WWE does have the trademark on Scott Dawson, but he has used the name prior. So I don't know exactly how all of that would work out.
I reckon he'll just use his real name.
Also, we learned this afternoon or early evening that Mike and Maria Kanellis have actually asked for their release. According to Pro Wrestling Sheet's Ryan Satin, he did state that Mike and Maria have been unhappy recently with how they've been used. And I think it said a couple of weeks ago or a few weeks ago, they did actually ask for their release. Interesting thing to note here, 2 things. A, Maria was actually on Twitter recently talking about, hey, it was a picture of Mike from 2008 and 2018. And basically said, why ain't this guy on TV? Also, another interesting note here is Mike Kanellis or Mike Bennett has reopened his Pro Wrestling Tees store and is selling new shirts on the website. So that's another interesting one. So that all came out today that those 4 are looking to leave the WWE.
So let's talk a little bit about, not to be rude, one of the bigger names out of that being the Revival.
Let me say one more thing before you get going.
Yeah.
Remember, Just because they asked for their release doesn't mean the WWE will grant it. Remember Neville. Neville left, walked out at a Raw, wanted to leave the company, wanted to be done. They made him sit home for almost a year before finally granting him that release. We don't know when Mike and Maria's contracts are up. We don't know exactly when the Revival's contracts are up. So everything's just up in the air right now. Go for it.
Well, what I want to say is that with the Revival, I mean, there's a grant, and remember, request doesn't mean grant.
Exactly.
If they do get granted their release, let's say tomorrow we wake up and it says Revival out of here. I mean, it's probably AEW, which would be their hub.
Right.
Do you think? How am I trying to phrase this? Do you think the Revival, or whatever they're going to end up being called, would become that NXT team? Would they have to change up again? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if they would be as successful in the independents as they would be in the WWE. I think they were the perfect WWE tag team because they went against what WWE was. They were very hard-hitting, mat wrestling-based guys, which WWE didn't see a lot of. So when you saw them wrestling, you thought, wow, this is really good. I don't see this that often. In the independents,
Right.
you see a giant mix of wrestling style. You get mat wrestling, you get high flying, you get death match, you get all of this stuff.
But if they just go straight to AEW, though, they don't have to do all that death match and crazy stuff.
I'm saying that they don't have to, but I'm saying that landscape of AEW is going to have so many different wrestling styles because they've got guys like Neville, but they also got guys like Jericho, or Pac, but they also got guys like Jericho, guys like Joey Janela, but guys like Hangman Adam Page.
Here's the thing.
I want to say Hangman Adam Cole.
You bring up Joey Janela. We're going to talk about Jericho's podcast here in a little bit, but you said Joey Janela. Funny thing is, Jericho talked about Joey Janela on his podcast and goes, I could probably have a good match with that, but I'm going to have to teach him how to calm down in his matches.
And I mean, exactly. So are we just going to see another independent wrestling tag team that does cool things, or are they going to have to really, really do something different? Because I feel like if we're getting to oversaturation in wrestling, I'm sorry I had to fucking enunciate myself because I'm apparently 13 years old and still learning to speak. Because I feel like that's an issue that we've been running into since about 2016, is that what can we see that hasn't been done, and will it be good?
Well, here's the thing. They've got that more mat wrestling, amateur kind of style to them. Do you know of another tag team outside of WWE like that?
No, but I'm sure there is one that I'm just not thinking of right now.
Like, I really can't think of another one like that out there on the indies.
If you guys have any, please let me know.
Yeah.
I'm personally just blanking on any tag teams that are kind of like that. I mean, if we're talking about like mat-based style, I guess like young grizzled vet. Well, WWE, damn.
They're in WWE now.
I was gonna say WWE is.
They're the NXT UK Tag Team Champions.
They've eaten alive the UK scene. I have nothing to fall back on when I complain. OVE, I guess they're very.
No, they're more hardcore deathmatch guys.
Yeah, they're hardcore and a little mat-based when they have to be mat-based.
But I'm talking about like guys that feel like Ole and
Briscoes?
Arn Anderson. They're Briscoes, the original Briscoes, not Mark and Jay, but like Gerald Briscoe and stuff, like old school amateur wrestling style. You could say, oh yeah, I got a mat-based style, but if you're not the Revival with that mat-based, almost amateur-ish style, kind of, you know.
Someone said Jeff Cobb and Elgin.
A little bit, yes. There you go. That's a good one. But they don't tag as much anymore. They're kind of like singles guys now, especially with Cobb being the TV champ in ROH and Elgin just doing whatever he does every so often.
You know, and it runs in. This kind of runs into a realm that I did on one of my first ever hot takes of what's more important, the wrestling or the promo, the storytelling or the talking. Edwin just says, great storytelling is timeless. There's no such thing as too many great tag teams. This isn't the 80s. Your comment makes no fucking sense, buddy, but I appreciate your attempt at feedback. SCU, I guess. I feel like they're just a team. Like they don't have a specific thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no shtick to them.
Because you've got like Daniels, who can do almost anything. Kazarian is kind of like that too. And then you've got Scorpio Sky, who's kind of like, he doesn't do all the high-flying moves the other guys do. He'll jump off the top rope when he has to, but he is more kind of like a brawler type guy.
People are saying, Zack Sabre Jr. and Minoru Suzuki-gun. Yeah, I guess.
So, on that note, too, Davey Boy Smith and Lance Archer.
Davey Boy Smith and Lance Archer.
That more brawling kind of mat-based style.
Motor City Machine Guns. There's a couple that you...
Machine Guns are more than... They're not... Well, A, they're not a tag team anymore because Alex Shelley's retired. But
Very
B,
good.
They were high-flying X Division type guys, cruiserweights. Same thing with the Young Bucks.
But it's just something that I worry about oversaturation, and I worry about another thing that I don't know if it's going to affect AEW in that way. And as we begin to transition to talking to Chris Jericho, I don't want at all, if AEW really does take off and becomes some huge thing, you know what I don't want? For the life of me, I don't want inside jabs, inside jokes. I don't want like, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like, I don't want his name to be Doss Scottson or something fucking stupid like that. Like, I don't want little jabs at WWE.
You don't want Big Kaz.
Yeah, I don't want fucking Big Kaz. Oh my god.
Or Enzo.
That physically gave me stage 4 terminal cancer to watch that. Regardless, that's just what I not want from AEW. What I do want from AEW is Chris Jericho and Joey Janela. And apparently that's something he talked about on his podcast.
So Jericho, on the podcast that dropped yesterday, I believe it was. It was yesterday or today. I think it was yesterday. Basically gave the whole outline of when he last wrestled for WWE and when he signed with AEW. So the whole Janela thing, he just talked about everybody on the roster at the end of the podcast. Basically all the names we do already know. So Jericho started off by saying that his last official date with WWE, where he was actually signed, was right after Payback. I was actually at the show. It was SmackDown, where he lost the U.S. title to Kevin Owens, and they did the whole injury angle with the chair over his neck, throwing him into the turnbuckle. So that was the last night he was actually contracted by WWE. He didn't sign a new contract. He came back for one other match where it was a triple threat with him, AJ, and Owens, and that was really it. He did do the 25th anniversary special. He did do the Greatest Royal Rumble and stuff. So Jericho talked about how he left WWE and felt like he was done. He didn't need to wrestle anymore. He was going to go on the road with Fozzy. They had a full schedule with Fozzy, and they'd go into a city, and then they would sell out so quickly that they knew that they just had to add more dates and keep adding more dates. And then about summer of 2017, he was called by his good friend Don Callis, who said, "Hey, got a proposition for you. Would you ever want to wrestle Kenny Omega in the Dome?" And Jericho was like, "I'll get back to you." So he thought about it. He learned more about who exactly Kenny Omega was, because remember, he was a WWE guy that just focused on WWE stuff for, since he started in WWE in 99.
Here's the thing. He's been wrestling literally. Let me...
He started in the early 90s.
Well, I'm going to tell you this right now. He debuted August 9th, 1999. I was 1 year old. He wrestled from the WWE from the time that I was 1 to the time that I was 19 years old. In my entire fucking life, this dude was WWE homed. Literally from the moment I popped out of a vagina to the minute I sat down in this chair and started talking to you.
So Jericho goes on to say that he contemplated it. He spoke with Don Callis. Don Callis set up a meeting where top officials from New Japan flew to a secret location in New York City to meet with Jericho, so no one knew what was going on. And they worked out the plan. They worked out that he was going to show up once or twice before the Dome and then wrestle Kenny at the Dome, and that would have been it. So he calls Vince McMahon, and at first Vince seemed a little hesitant about the idea. He's like, "I've already signed on. I'm going to do the one match, but Vince, it's only one match, and this is going to make me an even bigger star for when I do come back to the WWE." So Vince was like, "Okay, one shot kind of thing, go for it." Vince gave his blessing. All was good. So then leading up to the Dome, Jericho goes, "You have that New Year's Dash show the next night. How about I do something with somebody there?" He pitched Tanahashi. And Gedo said, no, Naito. Because Naito was complaining leading up to the Dome that his match should have been the only main event, the real main event, him and Okada for the championship, not a quote-unquote double main event. So Naito was talking crap on Jericho's match leading up to the Dome, so they said, attack Naito. And Jericho said, okay. So he attacks Naito, and that was it. He didn't have a deal in place to come back at that time, and then he spoke with Vince, and Vince was a little mad. Vince goes, I thought you said it was a one-off thing. What was that thing the next night? And he goes, Vince, don't worry about it. It was just another little thing I did, because you always say, Vince, you want to leave with your heat. You want to have that heat, and you want to have people talking about you. So Jericho goes on, and New Japan contacts him again and says, hey, would you like to do more? And Jericho had said he had so much fun with New Japan that, of course, it was an easy answer. Yeah, what do you have in mind?
And you can tell that he had a lot of fun doing it as
Yeah.
well. You can tell.
So he goes on, and he talks about how he set up the match for the championship with Naito. He, at that time, signed on to do 3 matches, which we saw was the Naito match, where he took the title from Naito, the Evil match in the fall, and then the Dome match this past couple weeks ago. So, Greatest Royal Rumble, he was called to do the Greatest Royal Rumble, and he was like, sure, I'll go to Saudi Arabia. And they said, okay, you're going to be in the Rumble match. Then plans changed. They said, no, we want you in a casket match against The Undertaker. And he was all for it. He goes, me and Taker, we have great chemistry. Heck yeah.
Oh, yeah, they definitely do.
So he talks to Vince and tells Vince, hey, I just want to tell you this before you hear it from anybody else. I've signed on to do 3 more matches with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And he said Vince kind of didn't give him much of a response, was kind of just like, okay, cool, whatever you want to do kind of thing. But he can tell Vince was kind of a little peeved.
Mm-hmm.
A couple hours later, he gets a phone call from somebody in WWE that goes, hey, you're not in the casket match anymore. You're just going to be in the Rumble. He asked why. And they said, oh, the Prince wanted Rusev. He said, I'm not dumb. I know why they pulled me, because Vince doesn't want me in a spotlighted match when I'm going to be wrestling for another promotion. Which makes a little sense. So we go forward. He takes the title from Naito. He does the match with Evil. But before that, Vince had contacted him. Well, let me track a little more. Tony Khan actually contacted Jericho's agent Barry Bloom in the summer to talk to Jericho about getting into wrestling. So Tony Khan has had this idea for AEW since before All In. Now, it may not have been AEW at that time, but he wanted to start a wrestling company back before All In. So Jericho's like, what's the worst that can happen? I talk to this guy and give him some advice, and nothing happens. So Jericho talked to him, and they had some conversations, and then Cody contacted him, and Matt Jackson contacted him about All In. They came up with the idea of what they did at All In, and the private jet that he actually used to go from All In to his show that same night for Fozzy was provided by Tony Khan. So he's become friends with Tony Khan after this. Like, he's said it in a couple different interviews.
It's a pretty good friend to have right there, I'll tell you that much.
So he does the stuff at All In. Then Vince calls him and says, hey, would you like to do our second Saudi Arabia show? And Jericho goes, I'll do it, but I have something I need from you. I need a private jet that'll take me to Japan. I have a match that I'm contracted for, so I need a way to go from Saudi Arabia straight there. Because Jericho said after the first Greatest Royal Rumble, he'll never deal with the Saudi Arabia airports again. It was just hell.
I'd imagine.
So he asked Vince for the private jet, and Vince goes, I'll get back to you. Nothing. Didn't hear a word. It's not the first time that happened where he talked to Vince, and Vince goes, I'll get back to you, and Vince doesn't. He goes, I understand. Vince is a busy guy, but I could tell that he was mad. So he doesn't work Crown Jewel. He goes, does the match with Evil. Then he goes, and he's going to the Tokyo Dome to do this match with Naito. He calls Vince a couple days before and says, hey, I've got this offer. There's this wrestling company they're starting. They've offered me this amount of money. And Jericho literally goes, this is how big this deal is. He goes, I knew WWE could match this offer because of their new television deal and the amount of money they're getting from that. So that tells you right there how much money AEW is paying Jericho.
Mm-hmm.
So Jericho goes, I told Vince, this is what's happening. Would you guys want to match it? And Vince really didn't give him an answer. He, again, didn't hear from Vince. He goes to Japan, does the match at the Tokyo Dome, comes back home that was Friday, comes back home on Sunday. That next morning, Monday morning, first thing, he was with Tony Khan signing his AEW contract.
I'm of the firm belief that Jericho would literally be happier wrestling a broomstick in front of 10 people than he would be continuing to wrestle for the WWE.
And he says this. He said literally, I can't go back to WWE anymore. I've done everything I can there. The Y2J character is what they want me to be. They want me to have the list. They'll probably just put me back with Kevin Owens. I've evolved from that. I can't step down and go backwards. I like to always evolve. Jericho said that. And that when he was done with WWE, when his contract expired that last time, after WrestleMania 33, he felt like he was just done with wrestling. He didn't want to really do it anymore. But working with the Bucks and Cody at All In, working for New Japan Pro Wrestling, has reignited his passion because he's learned that it's not all about this is what they tell me to do and I do it. It's more of, he said when he goes in there for his matches in New Japan, they say, here's kind of like what we want out of the match. You figure everything else out. You do it, whatever you want. And he says that has really opened his eyes back up to why he loved pro wrestling when he first started and what he feels like he goes, it doesn't matter that I'm 48, 49 years old. I don't feel that old in the ring because I'm able to do anything I want and everything I can, and I can set it up based off of my abilities now.
And I think that's one thing that WWE hasn't realized about a lot of their talent, aside from John Cena, where they realize, hey, Cena's kind of up there in age. Let's let him wrestle a style that he can go. And guess what? A lot of Cena's matches have been genuinely very good and really enjoyable. But with the Jericho, yeah, he is up there in age. He's a pretty old guy.
He's almost 50.
When he has that option to say, all right, I know my limitations and I know how far I can push my body before it starts to get a little dicey, let's go as far as I can. And he has that option to say, this is how I want the match to go, and doesn't have to run it by Vince, doesn't have to run it by Triple H, doesn't have to run it by anybody. He can have that option. That's the kind of Jericho that I believe wanted to be in the WWE for so long now. And I think AEW is giving that. I'm sure the payday for him is high, but I'm fuck.
Okay there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm sure that the payday didn't have to be too high because he's realizing, hey, I'm going to get to finish out my career wrestling in a pretty big startup company and get to call my stuff, and I'm making I'm making a good amount of money.
Right. And to close out what Jericho said really fast. He said that, he ran down everybody on the rosters. Like, I can have good matches with Cody. I can have good matches with either Bucks in single matches. He said, I can have a good match with Hangman Page, who's going to be a huge star in the next couple of years. And then he talked about MJF and Joey Janela, where he's like, I can even work with Joey Janela. I know he does some crazy things and hurt himself. He's got a knee injury now, so I'd make him, he said something along the lines like, I'd make him slow down and calm down in the ring. And then he said, I wouldn't have came to AEW if I didn't think that their future was secure. He's like, they're not going to be a company that's gone in a year. They're not going to be a company that's gone in 3 years. He said they've got, from what he's heard, they've got very, very lucrative TV deals that could be signed. And he feels that his name being attached to the company can help sign those deals, or at least one of those deals. Because if you go into a board of directors at a TV, say Time Warner, that kind of knows wrestler names, but maybe just only WWE names, and they hear the name, well, we've got Chris Jericho, who's been with the WWE for so long. They go, oh, you've got that guy? That guy can bring in the fans. Then they say, and, he can also go in there and go, well, he also worked for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and once his match was announced, they had X amount of people. I think it was like 5,000 people sign up for their streaming service just to see him. They had, after his match was announced, over 10,000 tickets sold to see him. So they can use Jericho's name attached to AEW to help get them a good TV deal as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think I do think Chris Jericho and AEW are a very, very good combination.
Yeah, so if you guys do have, I think it's roughly a little more over an hour long, just sitting around doing nothing, playing a video game or something, throw that podcast on. It's a great listen. He details everything. And then also, he doesn't go into details about the all-in stuff because he's got a full podcast that talks about that whole day. So go listen to both of those podcasts. They're just both great.
Exactly.
Like I'm not usually a fan of the Jericho podcast because there's a lot of non-wrestling stuff he talks about. He'll sometimes talk music, sometimes talk paranormal, which I'm not quite into. But this one, these couple ones were really, really worth the listen.
Absolutely. Before we We getting the wrap up for the show.
We're gonna take some calls too.
That's true. All right, let's take calls.
Let's take a call. Caller on the air. What's going on?
Hi, this is Rachel from Tacoma, Washington, and I got 2 questions.
Sure.
Okay, my first question is, do you see Aleister Black and Daniel Bryan facing each other at WrestleMania?
No.
Nah.
I don't even know
I
if
feel like
I don't even know if Black will be on the main roster yet.
no. I think she's just saying, or they're. I'm sorry, I don't know if it's guy or girl, but I believe that they're just asking in general. Could you ever see that being a potential match? I'd
Probably
say
not.
no. I'd say more likely you're gonna get Gargano and Ciampa at a WrestleMania rather than Gargano and Black. Though I do think
No. She
Gargano-
has Daniel Bryan.
Oh, I
and
thought she
Black.
said Do I? Do
No,
I just not
Daniel.
listen when people talk? Do I just not listen when people talk?
No,
apparently?
it was
God,
it was my fault the way I added you to the call.
all of my teachers are right. I never listen. I could see a Brian Black match. I could definitely see that actually.
I don't know.
A Brian Black? Yeah, hell yeah, dude. I see it. I personally see it.
And my second question is, do you see Finn Balor and Seth Rollins at WrestleMania this year?
No.
Ooh, this year. This year's Mania, Finn Balor and Seth Rollins.
Basically insinuating that Finn beats Brock at the Rumble. I don't see that happening at all.
Oh, I absolutely see Finn beating Brock. I absolutely see
I
Finn
don't at
beating
all.
Brock. Really?
No.
We
'Cause-
might be looking at 2 completely different standpoints.
Because think
then.
about this. Originally, the match was the match was initially supposed to be Braun Strowman,
Okay.
and Braun was never gonna beat Brock Lesnar. Hence, why they pulled him out of the match, because they didn't want Brock beating Braun for a third time.
Okay.
So if Braun was never supposed to beat Brock, and Brock was supposed to win and retain the championship and take it to Mania, why would Finn now all of a sudden be in line to beat Brock instead?
So I'll tell you this right now.
Okay.
Monday was a testing ground for Vince to say, look, show me that they like you. Show me. Go out there, show me. And he did. Crowd went apeshit. Remember, Vince put the belt on him once.
True.
Vince, I guarantee you something in Vince's mind was like, I saw something here.
But apparently Vince also has a plan in his head for Brock versus Seth Rollins at Mania.
I'm gonna go ahead and give a hard no. Not this year. Let Finn take that belt from Brock.
Now, we do know that Finn versus Seth could be a one hell of a match, as we saw in their SummerSlam match, even after the fact when Finn got hurt. The match
And I'll
was
tell you this
still
now.
good.
I'll tell you this now. If Braun didn't get hurt, I would be more than happy to see a Finn versus Seth for that IC strap. That match would bring...
Braun was not pulled from this
not-
match because he's hurt.
Why was he pulled?
Because they didn't want Brock Lesnar beating him again for a third. This would be the third singles match between them that Brock would have won. They feel like that Braun has lost too many times to Brock Lesnar. If he loses again, then he's lost all credibility as a main eventer.
Oh, fans can look past that, provided Braun just does Braun things and lifts big stuff and throws bigger stuff. I mean, it's true. Fans are... They think wrestling fans are stupid. He can lose 100 times, but he can lift 2 cars for every 100 losses, and he's fine. But I feel like you have a more of a money match than Lashley or Dean as IC champ against anyone. You don't have any money in those, but I feel like you got a lot of money in Finn and Seth for that IC title. And I'm going to tell you something right now.
Okay.
After Tuesday, you have a $1 billion project in Andrade versus Rey Mysterio
Oh, yeah.
for that U.S. belt. You
Yeah.
have like, God, you're just standing at the bank, and the bank just like, fuck, what do you want? Just take whatever. I don't care. Please take it. You've got that brings legitimacy to a U.S. title. Those two
I
guys.
mean, when's the last time you saw WWE allow somebody other than Undertaker to do a tombstone?
Exactly.
Or not tombstone, but a pile driver. He allows those two guys to pull it off twice 2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a row. Absolutely baller of a match. Those two guys, U.S. title, throw it in there. It goes back to 2015 when Cena held it.
Maybe.
It brings legitimate. That was the last time that title was relevant.
Yes.
2015.
Until Del Rio took it from him.
That was Hell in a Cell, wasn't it?
Yes.
That was the first pay-per-view I watched. I watched it at a Starbucks. And I don't remember why, but Del Rio won, and out loud in the Starbucks, I went, well, fuck! And an
Del
old
Rio
woman
won
turned
because
around.
Cena was taking time off.
Yeah, I guess.
Let's take another call.
Andrade and Ray opening Mania. Oh, fuck. Please. Just Andrade and Ray, all of WrestleMania. That's it. Just them two.
Caller on
2 hour
the air,
classic.
what's going on?
Them guys, how's it going?
What's going on, my guy? How you doing?
I'm doing all right, no complaints.
There you go. What you got for us today, big man?
Yeah, just got kind of like two questions. Like, first thing is, personally, who would you guys prefer to see in AEW? We know who's going, but who would you two like to see in AEW?
We kind of talked about this last week. I know she's under contract, but Jordan Grace.
You love Jordan Grace. I know.
Did you
I
know-
love that woman?
Jordan, if you're watching, I love you. You're the best.
Did you know her whole negotiations for her contract with Impact was done through Twitter DMs?
I'd imagine.
She said it on some random podcast recently. Like, wow.
I'd imagine.
I ain't gonna lie, I love Jordan Grace too. So
Oh, yeah.
me and Nick, we're gonna have to fight. We're gonna have to fight over, man. I'm gonna win. I'm sorry.
Tim, who would you like to see?
If I could pick
Go ahead.
if I could pick anybody, like say that's not in WWE, like outside of WWE, I'd probably like. I said this last week. If they want to get a young guy that they can build and make him like a homegrown kind of guy, Sammy Guevara.
I got one guy, but he's under. Tim, I want to know if he's his contract up. He's in Lucha Underground. He goes by the name Shane Strickland, but Lucha Underground he's called Killshot.
So there's some slippery roads right now with anybody under contract with Lucha Underground. As far as I know, Shane Strickland is trying to say that he's a free agent, but his Lucha Underground contract, just like others like Evil East and Joey Ryan, may hinder
And the
him
Lucha
from,
Brothers.
them too possibly, could hinder all them from going somewhere else. And we don't know what's going on with that because apparently people reached out to executives within Lucha Underground, or who you would call executives, and they were just like, oh yeah, talk to this guy, Dorian Roldan. He'll take care of it. But no, everyone's still under contract because Lucha Underground's not ran as a wrestling promotion. It's ran as a TV show. And typically in TV shows, they try to sign you to multiple seasons at once, and that's what they did. A lot of these people are signed to 5 and 6 season contracts. And they're exclusive contracts for the most part, unless they say, okay, you can go work for this company, like we've seen with the Lucha Brothers in MLW and Impact. But them going and signing with an AEW, I don't know.
Shane Strickland, he's just one. In my opinion, he's just underrated. He's just so. I seen him have a match with Matt Riddle, and that was awesome.
I know
think he's very
WWE.
underrated.
I know WWE's interested, but the whole Lucha Underground thing could really hurt him. And I know Evil East spoke out about this recently, and Joey Ryan was kind of like, didn't really quote unquote speak out about it, but did kind of like take Evil East's side.
Yeah, I kind of heard about what happened in WWE. Not good.
Well, yeah, she didn't have a good experience there, but
Yeah. Well, that's all I got for you guys.
All
Thanks for taking my call. Keep up the good work, though.
have a good night.
Have a good one, brother.
See ya.
Let's take one final call.
No.
No?
No.
Why?
I'm kidding. I don't give a shit. Take another call. Let the fans speak.
Caller, you're on the air. What's going on?
Hey, Kim. I have two questions for you and Nick.
Okay.
One, with the new, I love the new women's catching towels. Are those the new designs for the other catching towels for Raw and SmackDown?
Now,
No,
Will
they're just
the
going to be for the
effect
women.
with
no, that's a good question,
NXT?
though. Hold on. That's a good question because I did hear recently that they could be coming out with new designs for the men's titles as well that do have the removable side plates. So I don't know if the men's are going to get titles that look the same or not, but I have heard that they've looked into getting new titles for the men's as well with the removable side plates. Also, the U.S. and the IC title possibly as well being revamped.
In my last one
Yep.
is, I know King Omega's contract with NJPW will be on the 31st. Have you heard of King Omega turned down the offer from WWE?
So on that, I want to say thank you for the call. Now, we don't know if it's exactly the 31st of January when Kenny Omega's contract does expire. I have heard first week, second week, because if you remember, last year he did a couple interviews and stated that in February he was going back to Japan to work out the deal for his new one-year contract. So it could have been that his contract may not, because Shida's contract is up on the 31st, but his may not be the 31st as well. It could be. Now, as far as where he's going to go, everyone's saying he got a really, really good money deal and good, kind of dates deal with WWE, but everything I'm hearing indicates he's going to AEW.
I'd imagine AEW. I think it'd be foolish, but I'd imagine AEW.
I mean, Jericho's teased it's saying it basically 3 times now. I think he said it after the rally. He was like, I'm here in AEW and I'm going to have great matches with Cody and Kenny and the Bucks. And then he said it again today on his podcast. He was just like, yeah, I can have another great match with Kenny. And then he kind of paused and goes, if he does sign with All Elite Wrestling.
I'm sure he will. I'm
And also,
sure he will.
One last thing to note on the Jericho thing, he's actually got in his contract that, yes, he's contracted to AEW, but he could still work for New Japan. So Jericho could be at that MSG show.
I'd imagine he had to be.
But
I'd imagine he would be at that MSG show.
He made sure to get in his AEW contract that, yes, AEW doesn't work with New Japan per se, but he's allowed to still do stuff for them, which is cool, which is very cool.
It is very cool. Thank you, Kanye. Very cool.
With that has been the PW Unlimited podcast, episode number 59 here on the 16th of January. You can follow us. Huh?
I would say yep.
You can follow us right here on YouTube. You can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Pro Wrestling ULTD. You can follow us on Twitter at PWUnlimited. You can follow me just about everywhere at Timmy Buddy. Nick, where can they find you?
You can find me at Arm Week 21 on the Twitterverse. You can find me in your hearts and in your dreams every night. But you can also find our fine friends over at Fightful. Fightful.com, Twitter at Fightful Online. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. If you weren't here at the top of the show, we're going to end the show with a clip that we ran at the beginning. For those of you that didn't get the chance to see it, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We hope to see you next time. We hope to see you over on Patreon. Talk to you later, folks.
Have a good one.
Hey guys, it's Timmy, and this is Pro Wrestling Unlimited. Pro Wrestling Unlimited is a pro wrestling news YouTube channel and website where we strive to bring you the latest and up-to-date pro wrestling news. With multiple live podcasts every week and breaking news, we try to do our best to keep you in the know of everything in the pro wrestling world.
Since 2015, this channel has grown into more than just a wrestling news hub, and that hasn't been without the support from you guys. In our first 3 years, we have grown over 100,000 subscribers, and that number continues to grow every day. We've taken the next step in bringing you the content that you want to see.
With PWUnlimited.net, we can now bring you even more news than before, like some of the smaller stories in pro wrestling that are no doubt interesting, but not big enough to talk about in a video. We also bring you results from multiple shows every single week, and so much more.
With all of that, we still want to grow PW Unlimited into something even bigger, and that is where we need your help.
We are officially launching the PW Unlimited Patreon with some cool perks just for you guys. Patreon is a platform that allows you to support content creators just like us, and in return, we offer you some exclusive content, merchandise, and our undying love and affection.
If you still cannot support us on Patreon, we understand and ask you to continue to follow us on YouTube and the website, and share our content in hopes that someone new sees it and follows PWU. Now, here is what you can get if you support us on Patreon.
The PW Unlimited Patreon is broken up into 4 separate tiers, starting with the Bronze tier. With the Bronze tier, for just $1, you have the opportunity to ask us questions that will be answered on the PW Unlimited Wednesday show. Also, your name will be featured on screen during all PW Unlimited podcasts as a thank you for supporting us.
With the Silver tier, you will get our Patreon exclusive NXT, NXT UK, and 205 live podcasts, as well as exclusive Q&A streams with different members of the PW Unlimited team throughout the month, as well as some faces throughout the wrestling community here on YouTube, plus everything else you heard above.
With the Gold tier, you will get the exclusive PW Unlimited Patreon podcast, where we talk about anything and everything, not just wrestling. Plus, Patreon exclusive retro reviews voted on by you guys. You will also get early access to Nick's hot takes, PW List This, Life Before Wrestling, and more. Plus, everything in the Bronze and Silver tiers.
Finally, the Platinum tier. The Platinum tier is for the top supporters, and to show our thanks, you will receive Patreon exclusive PW Unlimited merch and more every other month. Plus, everything included in the Bronze, Silver, and Gold tiers.
We've heard the crowds for more content, and that's exactly what we're aiming to do with the support of you guys.
With everything we mentioned here already, as more and more we support PWU on Patreon, the more content we can add over time.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who has supported us over the last 3.5 years and who will support us into the future of Pro Wrestling Unlimited in hopes of growing this into something we could only imagine.
Like I said before, PWU started as a wrestling news hub, but since then we've grown to podcasts, interviews, and so much more. And I'm so excited to start this next step in the channel with you guys.